Her janitor thinks he can fix this? Amanda Harrison's voice dripped with disgust as she gestured toward the sparking engine. Her diamond bracelet caught the boardroom lights as she dramatically covered her nose. God, you even smell like motor oil. Darius Washington froze in the doorway, trash bags still clutched in his calloused hands. 20 executives stared at him like he was an unwelcome stray dog. Amanda stood up, her red Louboutin heels clicking against marble floors. She walked to Darius close enough that he could smell her expensive perfume mixed with contempt. Here's a deal. Maintenance boy, fix this $2 million engine that Stanford engineers couldn't repair and I'll marry you right here. She snapped her fingers inches from his face. When you fail, and you will, security will escort you out permanently. The room fell silent. $50 million in contracts hung on this broken machine. Have you ever been dismissed so completely that someone bet their reputation you'd fail? If you believe no one should face discrimination like this, type justice in the comments below. Quantum Dynamics Corporation rose from Austin's tech corridor like a glass monument to innovation. The 40-story tower housed America's most promising autonomous vehicle company, where billion-dollar dreams took shape in sterile laboratories and boardrooms that smelled of leather and ambition. Amanda Harrison had built this empire with ruthless precision. At 38, she commanded respect through fear. Her blonde hair always pulled into a perfect bun, her suits tailored to intimidate. The tech world called her a visionary. Her employees whispered different words behind closed doors. The company's crown jewel sat broken on the executive conference table, a revolutionary AI-guided engine designed to power their fleet of self-driving delivery trucks. This wasn't just any engine. It represented 3 years of development, 47 patents, and the engineering dreams of Austin's brightest minds. The machine could theoretically power autonomous vehicles with 93% efficiency, revolutionizing the delivery industry overnight. For 6 weeks, this machine had defied every attempt at repair. 3 separate teams of Ivy League engineers had failed. 67 diagnostic tests had yielded nothing but frustration and mounting pressure. The engine would start, run for exactly 14 minutes and 37 seconds, then overheat and shut down with the same cryptic error code. Harmonic disruption detected. Darius Washington knew every inch of quantum dynamics marble floors. For 3 years, he'd pushed his maintenance cart through these halls, invisible to the executives who stepped around him like furniture. His official title read technical consultant, but everyone knew the truth. He emptied trash cans, mopped floors, and endured the daily humiliation of being the most educated janitor in Austin. His community college engineering degree hung framed in his studio apartment, a bitter reminder of dreams deferred by medical bills and circumstances beyond his control. While his classmates had transferred to 4-year universities, Darius had chosen sacrifice. His mother's cancer treatments came first, always. The chemotherapy sessions cost $3,000 each. Insurance covered 60%. The math was simple and devastating. The engine crisis deepened each day. Amanda's morning meetings grew louder, her demands more unreasonable. She paced the boardroom like a caged predator, her heels clicking against marble in sharp, angry rhythms that made interns flinch. Coffee cups accumulated on conference tables like archaeological layers, marking the progression of her desperation. $67 million, she screamed at the engineering team during Tuesday's disaster meeting. That's what we lose if this engine doesn't work by Friday. $67 million that could have bought us market dominance in 3 major cities. The engineers, Stanford, MIT, Caltech graduates, sat frozen in expensive suits, their laptops displaying the same error codes they'd been staring at for weeks. Their average salary exceeded $120,000 annually. Their combined student debt totaled over $2 million. None of that mattered now. The engine's AI system refused to communicate properly with the mechanical components. Every time they thought they'd found the solution, the machine would overheat, smoke, and shut down. Team leader David Thompson, Stanford class of 2019, had dark circles under his eyes that makeup couldn't hide. His team had tried everything: software patches, hardware replacements, complete system reinstalls. They'd consulted with automotive engineers from Detroit, AI specialists from Stanford, even brought in a feng shui consultant, after someone suggested the office energy might be interfering with the machine. Amanda's eyes swept the room like searchlights, hunting for someone to blame. "Maybe we have too many people who don't belong here," she said, her gaze lingering on Darius as he quietly replaced the water pitcher. "Dead weight that's dragging down our entire operation." The comment hit its mark. Several engineering team members glanced at Darius, their expressions ranging from embarrassment to barely concealed agreement. Sarah Kim from Berkeley shifted uncomfortably. She'd worked 12-hour days for 6 weeks and couldn't solve the problem. Yet somehow the suggestion that a janitor might be the weak link made twisted sense in their exhausted minds. Darius pretended not to hear. He'd learned that invisibility was survival in this place, but his engineering mind couldn't stop analyzing the problem. Late at night, when he mopped the boardroom floors, he'd study the engine's blueprints left scattered on the table. The technical specifications told a story that the engineers seemed to miss. The engine was built in Germany using metric measurements, but the AI calibration software was developed in California using imperial units. A simple conversion error could create cascading problems. The pressure mounted like steam in a closed kettle. Security footage from the previous week showed Amanda deliberately scheduling Darius's cleaning duties during important investor meetings. She'd point him out to potential partners, her voice carrying just loud enough for him to hear. "We believe in giving everyone opportunities, even our maintenance staff." Her tone suggested charity rather than employment. Email chains revealed worse. Internal communications referred to him as the cleaning guy, despite his official consultant title. Messages discussed his inevitable termination as a cost-cutting measure. One particularly cruel thread, initiated by Amanda herself, speculated about whether he could even read the company directory. HR manager Jennifer Walsh had participated, adding laughing emojis to comments about Darius's limited vocabulary. The whispered conversations were equally brutal. Employees discussed his presence like an unfortunate necessity, a corporate diversity checkbox that management tolerated but didn't respect. "At least he's quiet," one marketing director had said. "Better than the last guy who actually tried to contribute to meetings." The Japanese investors arrived on Wednesday, their black Mercedes sedans pulling up to Quantum Dynamics' entrance like a funeral procession. These men represented 100 million yen in potential funding, money that could launch the company into global dominance. Hiroshi Tanaka, CEO of Tokyo Automotive Solutions, had flown from Tokyo specifically to evaluate Quantum Dynamics' engine technology. His reputation for technical perfectionism was legendary. Companies either impressed him completely or failed spectacularly. Dr. Maria Santos, former Tesla engineer and current board advisor, accompanied the delegation. Her reputation in automotive engineering was legendary. She designed power systems that had revolutionized electric vehicles, held 37 patents, and consulted for companies across 3 continents. Her presence meant this wasn't just a business meeting. It was a technical evaluation that could make or break Quantum Dynamics' future. Dr. Santos didn't suffer fools, didn't accept excuses, and could identify engineering flaws with surgical precision. The demonstration was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. The entire company held its breath. Marketing had already prepared press releases announcing the successful partnership. Sales teams had drafted proposals for Asian expansion. The cafeteria had ordered champagne for a celebration that everyone hoped would happen. Amanda's desperation showed in small ways. Her usually perfect makeup appeared slightly smudged by Wednesday evening. Her assistants scurried through hallways, carrying endless cups of coffee and stress management supplements. The executive bathroom had become her private screaming room, where she unleashed frustration that couldn't be displayed in public. Security guards reported hearing muffled shouting and the sound of expensive heels kicking metal trash cans. Meanwhile, Darius continued his invisible existence. He watched engineers work 16-hour shifts, consuming energy drinks, and making increasingly wild theories about the engine's problems. They blamed software conflicts, hardware incompatibilities, even electromagnetic interference from the building's Wi-Fi network. One desperate engineer suggested that the office's feng shui might be disrupting the machine's electronic harmony, but Darius heard something they didn't. During his late-night cleaning sessions, when the office fell silent, he'd pause near the engine room. The machine made sounds, subtle vibrations, and frequency patterns that reminded him of his grandfather's garage in Detroit. Every engine had its own voice, William Washington had taught him. You just had to know how to listen. This engine's voice sounded strained, like it was fighting against itself. Thursday morning brought chaos. The final diagnostic test had failed spectacularly, filling the boardroom with smoke and triggering the fire suppression system. Engineers stood dripping wet, their expensive laptops ruined, their reputations hanging by threads thinner than spider silk. The smell of burnt electronics mixed with chemical fire suppressant created an atmosphere of defeat that permeated the entire floor. Hiroshi Tanaka watched the disaster unfold with Japanese stoicism, his expression revealing nothing. Detroit, 1995. The auto industry was bleeding jobs like a wounded giant, but William Washington's garage on 8 Mile Road still hummed with purpose. At 72, he moved with the deliberate grace of a master craftsman, his weathered hands reading engines like sacred texts. 12-year-old Darius pressed his face against the garage window, watching his grandfather work magic on a broken Mustang. The engine had been declared dead by 3 other mechanics, but William saw something they missed. His fingers traced the engine block with the tenderness of a doctor examining a patient. "Come here, boy," William called without looking up. "Time you learned something useful." That summer changed everything. While other kids played video games, Darius spent his days in the cathedral of grease and steel that was his grandfather's domain. William had been one of the first black foremen at Ford Motor Company, breaking barriers in the 1970s, when such achievements required extraordinary courage and skill. "Listen close," William would say, placing Darius's small hand on a running engine. "This machine's got a heartbeat. Feel that rhythm? That's 4 cylinders talking to each other. 8,000 explosions per minute, all working in perfect harmony." The old man's philosophy was simple but profound. "Son, an engine doesn't care about your diploma or your skin color. It only responds to those who truly listen to its heartbeat. Respect the machine, understand its language, and it'll never lie to you." William taught Darius to diagnose problems through sound, vibration, even smell. A slight irregularity in engine rhythm could indicate worn bearings. A particular scent might reveal oil degradation or coolant leaks. These weren't skills taught in textbooks. They were inherited wisdom passed down through generations of men who understood that machines had souls. The lessons extended beyond mechanics. William had survived decades in an industry that didn't welcome men who looked like him. He'd earned respect through undeniable competence, fixing problems that stumped engineers with advanced degrees. His reputation at Ford was legendary. William Washington could resurrect any engine, no matter how hopeless it seemed. "White folks going to test you twice as hard," he told Darius during those long summer afternoons. "Going to assume you're half as smart, but engines don't lie, boy. When you fix something they couldn't, suddenly your color doesn't matter so much." By age 16, Darius could tear down and rebuild entire engines blindfolded. He understood the intricate dance of pistons, valves, and timing chains better than most automotive engineers. Community college professors were amazed by his intuitive grasp of mechanical principles that typically required years of study to master. But life had other plans. William died during Darius's senior year of high school, a massive heart attack while working under the hood of a Cadillac. The funeral overflowed with Ford engineers, mechanics, and regular customers whose cars William had saved. They spoke of his genius, his integrity, his ability to solve impossible problems with simple solutions. The garage closed forever. The tools were sold to pay medical bills. Darius's inheritance wasn't money. It was knowledge, instinct, and a philosophy that would sustain him through decades of being underestimated. When Darius's mother, Denise, was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer during his sophomore year of community college, the choice was clear. Transfer to a 4-year university meant student loans, living expenses, and time away from home. His mother needed him more than he needed a prestigious degree. He worked 3 jobs while completing his associate degree in mechanical engineering, nights at a gas station, weekends at an auto parts store, early mornings cleaning office buildings. His grades remained perfect, despite exhaustion that left him sleeping in library chairs between classes. The community college professors recognized his exceptional talent. Dr. Martinez, who taught at MIT before settling into a quieter academic life, pulled Darius aside after a particularly brilliant presentation on engine efficiency optimization. "You have a gift," she said simply. "I've seen Harvard graduates with less intuitive understanding of mechanical systems. Don't let circumstances dim that light." But circumstances were relentless. Cancer treatments consumed every spare dollar. Insurance covered 60% of the chemotherapy costs, leaving thousands in monthly expenses. Darius's part-time jobs became a full-time necessity. His transfer applications to four-year universities remained unsubmitted in a folder labeled someday. After graduation, he found work wherever he could use his skills. Small repair shops, industrial maintenance, eventually landing at Quantum Dynamics through a temporary agency that promised technical consultant opportunities. The reality was different, but the paycheck covered his mother's medical bills. 3 years later, he still carried his grandfather's philosophy like a sacred flame. Every night, he studied engineering journals and technical manuals, keeping his knowledge current despite his janitorial duties. Online courses in automotive engineering, AI systems integration, and advanced diagnostics filled his free hours. His studio apartment was crammed with textbooks, technical journals, and salvaged engine parts. He studied like archaeological artifacts. William's voice echoed in his mind during the darkest moments. "The engine doesn't care about your circumstances, boy. It just wants someone who understands its language." Dr. Santos took detailed notes, her pen moving in sharp, precise strokes. The other Japanese investors exchanged glances that suggested their private jets might be departing earlier than planned. Amanda convened an emergency all-hands meeting. 200 employees packed into the main auditorium, their faces reflecting various stages of panic and resignation. The Japanese investors sat in the front row, their expressions unreadable behind designer glasses. Darius stood in the back near the emergency exits, invisible as always. "Ladies and gentlemen," Amanda began, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands, "we face our greatest challenge. Our revolutionary engine, the heart of our autonomous vehicle system, remains non-operational. Our engineering teams have exhausted conventional solutions." She paused, letting the weight of failure settle on the room like dust. "Effective immediately, we will begin cost reduction measures. Non-essential personnel will be terminated, starting with positions that don't directly contribute to solving this crisis." The room fell silent, except for the whisper of air conditioning and muffled sobs from the back rows. Amanda's gaze swept across faces, hunting for someone to sacrifice to the corporate gods. Her eyes lingered on Darius with predatory interest. That's when Darius made his mistake. He raised his hand. "Ma'am," his voice carried clearly through the microphone-enhanced acoustics, "I think the problem might be in the harmonic frequency calibration, not the software integration." 200 heads turned toward him like sunflowers following light. The Japanese investors leaned forward with sudden interest. "Dr." Santos raised an eyebrow, her expression shifting from boredom to curiosity. Amanda's face transformed. Surprise gave way to rage, then to something far more dangerous: opportunity. But what Amanda didn't know about Darius would change everything. The real story was just beginning. Standing in Quantum Dynamics auditorium, facing 200 skeptical faces and Amanda's predatory smile, Darius felt his grandfather's presence like a warm hand on his shoulder. The broken engine wasn't different from that Mustang in it, just needed someone who could hear its true voice. The real test was about to begin. The auditorium fell into a silence so complete that the building's ventilation system sounded like rushing wind. Amanda Harrison stood frozen at the podium, her manicured fingers gripping the microphone stand until her knuckles turned white. She hadn't expected this moment. A janitor challenging her in front of investors who could make or break her company's future. Hiroshi Tanaka leaned forward in his front row seat, his steel-gray eyes fixed on Darius with the intensity of a hawk spotting prey. Beside him, Dr. Santos set down her coffee cup with deliberate precision, her legendary engineering instincts suddenly alert. The other Japanese investors whispered in rapid, harsh consonants that cut through the tension like scattered glass. Amanda's mind raced through possibilities. She could dismiss Darius's comment, maintain her authority, and proceed with the termination announcement. But something in Hiroshi Tanaka's expression stopped her. The Japanese industrialist was studying Darius with the same focus he'd reserved for a promising prototype. This wasn't the time for quick dismissals. A cruel smile spread across Amanda's lips as a better idea crystallized. Why simply fire him when she could destroy him publicly? Make an example that would terrify every employee into absolute compliance while entertaining her Japanese guests with American corporate theater. "Well, well," she said, her voice amplified through the auditorium's sound system. "Our maintenance consultant has an opinion about advanced engineering." The word maintenance dripped with venom that made several employees cringe visibly. She stepped away from the podium, her red Louboutin heels clicking against the stage's polished wood. "Darius Washington, isn't it? The man who empties our trash cans and mops our floors thinks he understands what 67 Stanford and MIT graduates couldn't solve." Nervous laughter rippled through the audience. Employees shifted uncomfortably in their seats, caught between horror and fascination. This was a corporate blood sport, and everyone knew it. Dr. Santos pulled out her leather notebook, uncapping an expensive fountain pen. In her 40 years of engineering, she'd witnessed countless moments when breakthrough solutions emerged from unexpected sources. Her mentor at Stanford had taught her never to dismiss insights based on their origin. Genius wore many disguises. "Since you're so confident," Amanda continued, her voice rising with theatrical flair, "here's your chance to prove it. Fix our $2 million engine that stumped our best engineers for 6 weeks. Do it in front of everyone, our board, our investors, our entire company." She gestured toward the Japanese delegation like a game show host presenting prizes. "These gentlemen represent $100 million in potential funding. They came to see American innovation at work. Let's give them a show they'll never forget." Hiroshi Tanaka's expression remained unreadable, but his assistant was already typing notes on a tablet. Whatever happened next would be documented, analyzed, and reported back to Tokyo. American corporate culture was apparently more entertaining than anticipated. Amanda's voice dropped to a whisper that the microphone caught and amplified throughout the auditorium. "Here are the stakes, Darius. You have exactly 2 hours to diagnose and repair what our Stanford-trained engineers couldn't fix in 6 weeks. If you succeed, which we both know you won't, I'll personally promote you to senior engineering consultant with a salary that matches your inflated ego." The auditorium buzzed with shocked murmurs. Senior engineering consultant positions paid 6 figures and came with stock options. It was an absurd offer for someone whose current job description included emptying waste baskets. "But when you fail," Amanda continued, her smile sharp enough to draw blood, "you're not just fired, you're banned from this building permanently. Security will escort you out, and I'll personally ensure that every tech company in Austin knows about your spectacular failure." She snapped her fingers, and 2 security guards materialized at the auditorium side doors like summoned demons. Their presence wasn't subtle. This was intimidation theater, designed to terrify anyone else who might consider challenging authority. Dr. Santos stood up suddenly, her movement commanding attention throughout the room. At 62, Maria Santos commanded respect that transcended corporate hierarchies. Her work at Tesla had revolutionized electric vehicle powertrains. Her consulting firm counted every major automotive manufacturer as clients. When she spoke, engineers listened. "I'll serve as technical witness," she announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd never been questioned about engineering matters. "This test requires neutral oversight to ensure fairness and accuracy." Amanda's smile flickered momentarily. She hadn't anticipated this development. Dr. Santos's involvement legitimized the challenge, transforming it from corporate humiliation into a formal technical evaluation. Hiroshi Tanaka nodded approvingly. "Excellent. Mr. Washington, you have our complete attention." His English was precise, carrying the weight of industrial authority that had built Japanese engineering reputation. "We are curious to see American problem-solving methods." The auditorium erupted in whispered conversations. Employees pulled out smartphones, already composing texts and social media posts about the unfolding drama. This was the kind of corporate theater that would be discussed in Austin tech bars for months. Amanda realized she'd lost control of the narrative, but it was too late to retreat. "Fine," she said, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. "Doctor, Santos can witness your inevitable failure, but I'm adding one more condition." She gestured toward the cameras that Quantum Dynamics used for employee training and company announcements. "We're live streaming this entire challenge on our company social media accounts. Let the world see what happens when unqualified people attempt jobs beyond their capabilities." The live stream suggestions sparked immediate activity. Marketing assistants scrambled to set up professional lighting and camera angles. Social media managers began crafting hashtags: Quantum Dynamics Challenge, Engineering Test, Innovation at Work. Within minutes, the company's Instagram and LinkedIn accounts would be broadcasting live footage to thousands of followers. Darius stood motionless throughout this corporate circus, his maintenance cart still beside him like a faithful companion. His callous hands remained steady despite the earthquake of attention focused on his every breath. This was the moment William Washington had prepared him for, not through specific training, but through a lifetime of understanding that engines responded to competence regardless of credentials. "Doctor." Santos walked down the auditorium aisle, her heels making confident sounds against polished concrete. She stopped directly in front of Darius, studying his face with the intensity of someone who'd spent decades evaluating technical talent. "Young man," she said quietly, her voice meant only for his ears. "Are you absolutely certain you want to proceed? This isn't just about fixing an engine. Your entire future is at stake." Darius met her gaze steadily. "Ma'am, I've been listening to engines my whole life. This one's been trying to tell us what's wrong. We just haven't been hearing it correctly." Dr. Santos nodded slowly. Something in his eyes reminded her of the young engineers she'd mentored at Tesla. That combination of knowledge, intuition, and quiet confidence that separated true talent from mere education. "Very well," she said loud enough for the microphones to capture. "Let's see what you can do." The challenge was officially accepted. 2 hours to prove or destroy a lifetime of hidden expertise. The engine waited in the boardroom like a mechanical judge, its silent testimony about to determine one man's destiny. The crowd began moving toward the executive floor, smartphones recording every step of this unprecedented corporate drama. The executive boardroom transformed into an amphitheater of judgment. 200 employees pressed against the glass walls, their faces creating a mosaic of anticipation and doubt. The Japanese investors arranged themselves in executive leather chairs like a tribunal. Hiroshi Tanaka, checking his platinum watch with Germanic precision. Dr. Santos positioned herself beside the engine with the authority of someone who'd witnessed countless moments of engineering truth. The broken engine dominated the conference table like a technological altar. Chrome and steel components caught the LED lighting, creating shadows that seemed to pulse with mechanical possibility. Diagnostic equipment surrounded the machine laptops displaying endless error codes. Oscilloscopes, tracing electromagnetic signatures, temperature sensors, monitoring thermal patterns that had confounded engineers for 6 weeks. Comment your country and city. Let's see where justice is being celebrated worldwide. Amanda Harrison stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, her silhouette framed against the Austin skyline. Her smartphone live-streamed the scene to Quantum Dynamics' social media accounts, viewer numbers climbing rapidly as word spread through tech industry networks. The comment section is filled with predictions, mostly favoring spectacular failure. Darius approached the engine slowly, his maintenance uniform a stark contrast to the expensive suits surrounding him. The crowd's whispers died as he placed both hands flat against the engine block, closing his eyes with the reverence of a musician tuning a precious instrument. The first 30 seconds stretched like hours. Employees exchanged skeptical glances. A few engineering team members smirked, already composing resignation letters in case the company collapsed from this public relations disaster. But Dr. Santos watched with growing interest as Darius's expression changed from concentration to recognition. "It's fighting itself," Darius said suddenly, his voice carrying clearly through the boardroom's acoustics. "The AI system is perfect. but it's trying to compensate for mechanical problems that shouldn't exist. He opened his eyes, looking directly at Hiroshi Tanaka. Sir, this engine was manufactured in Munich using metric specifications. Correct, but the AI calibration was programmed here in California. Hiroshi Tanaka's eyebrows rose slightly. This is correct. Our precision is to hundredths of millimeters. American programming typically uses imperial measurements. Amanda's confident expression flickered momentarily. She hadn't expected technical dialogue that revealed actual knowledge of the manufacturing process. Darius nodded, his hands still resting on the engine. That's the first problem. The AI is trying to control mechanical components that are 0.03 inches different from what it expects. It's like trying to conduct an orchestra when every instrument is tuned to a slightly different key. First discovery, the sound diagnosis. May I start the engine? Darius asked Dr. Santos, who nodded with growing curiosity. The machine roared to life, filling the boardroom with the deep rumble of controlled explosions. But where others heard normal engine sounds, Darius heard a conversation. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. Engines speak to those who know their language. Listen, he said, raising his voice over the mechanical symphony. At 2,800 RPM, there's a harmonic frequency mismatch. The pistons are hitting their optimal rhythm, but the AI sensors are reading vibrations that don't match the programmed parameters. He pointed to the diagnostic screen displaying incomprehensible data streams. Your engineers have been chasing software ghosts when the problem is mechanical harmony. The engine runs for exactly 14 minutes and 37 seconds before overheating, because that's when the harmonic mismatch reaches critical resonance. Dr. Santos stepped forward, her engineering instincts fully engaged. Explain the harmonic theory. Every engine has a natural frequency, the RPM range where all components work in perfect synchronization. This engine was designed to operate at 3,400 RPM optimal efficiency. But the AI system was calibrated to expect imperial measurements, so it's trying to maintain a different harmonic frequency than what the mechanical components can deliver. He gestured toward the oscilloscope, displaying wave patterns. See those irregular spikes at 14-minute intervals? That's the engine trying to find its natural rhythm while the AI forces it into an artificial pattern. David Thompson, the Stanford-trained team leader, pushed through the crowd. That's impossible. We tested harmonic frequencies extensively during development. Darius looked at him with respectful disagreement. You tested the frequencies that the AI was programmed to expect, but the actual mechanical components are singing a slightly different song. Hiroshi Tanaka exchanged glances with his associates. This wasn't the rambling of an unqualified maintenance worker. This was sophisticated acoustic engineering analysis that addressed fundamental design integration issues. Second discovery, the measurement revelation. Darius moved to the engine's technical documentation, spreading blueprints across the polished conference table. His finger traced specifications with the precision of someone who'd studied these documents during countless late-night cleaning sessions. The crankshaft was machined in Munich to 87, 63mm diameter, he said, pointing to German engineering specifications. But the AI calibration assumes 450 inches, which converts to 87, 63 millimeters, mathematically identical but mechanically different. Dr. Santos leaned over the blueprints, her fountain pen following his calculations. Continue. Manufacturing tolerance in Germany allows plus or minus 0.01 millimeter. American tolerance typically allows plus or minus 0.05 inches, which is roughly 127 millimeter. The German components are manufactured to much tighter tolerances than the AI system expects. He pulled out a digital caliper from the diagnostic equipment, measuring various engine components with practiced efficiency. The pistons, connecting rods, even the timing chain, everything is manufactured to German precision standards, but the AI assumes American tolerance ranges. This creates a cascading synchronization error. Darius continued, his confidence growing as the technical logic unfolded. The AI constantly micro-adjusts, trying to compensate for imprecisions that don't actually exist. It's like a conductor trying to correct musicians who are already playing perfectly. Amanda's livestream comments exploded with engineering discussions. Viewers were sharing the stream across professional networks, and several Tesla and Ford engineers joined the conversation with technical questions and grudging admiration. David Thompson studied the measurements, his expression shifting from skepticism to amazement. "The tolerance differential creates cumulative timing errors," he muttered, his Stanford training finally connecting with Darius's intuitive analysis. Hiroshi Tanaka stood up, examining the measurements himself. German engineering pride demanded verification of any claims about manufacturing precision. After several minutes of careful calculation, he nodded slowly. "The analysis is mathematically correct." Third discovery, the elegant solution. "So how do we fix it?" Dr. Santos asked, her notebook filled with technical observations. Instead of proposing expensive software modifications or hardware replacements, Darius walked to a storage cabinet containing spare parts. He selected what appeared to be a simple metal disc, roughly the size of a hockey puck, with carefully calculated perforations. "A harmonic dampener," he explained, holding the component up for everyone to see. "Instead of reprogramming the AI to match German tolerances or remanufacturing components to American specifications, we add this resonance buffer to bridge the frequency gap." Amanda's confident expression cracked completely. "You're suggesting a $50 part can solve a problem that's cost us 6 weeks and millions in consulting fees. Sometimes the most elegant engineering solutions are the simplest," Darius replied. "The AI and the engine are both perfect. They just need a translator to help them communicate effectively." He began installing the dampener with movements that spoke of years of mechanical experience. His hands worked with the confident precision of someone who'd rebuilt countless engines in Detroit garages, community college workshops, and late-night apartment complex maintenance sessions. "Doctor," Santos watched every movement with professional fascination. "Where did you learn harmonic resonance engineering?" "My grandfather taught me that engines have souls," Darius said, tightening the final connection. "You can't fix a soul with software updates. You have to listen to what it's trying to tell you, then help it find its natural rhythm." The installation took 12 minutes. The dampener fit perfectly into existing mounting points, requiring no modifications to the original design. It was engineering elegance at its purest, solving complex problems through simple, intuitive solutions. "Ready for testing," Darius announced, stepping back from the engine. The boardroom fell silent. Hiroshi Tanaka checked his watch again. 1 hour and 47 minutes had elapsed. If Darius's analysis was correct, the engine should now operate flawlessly. If he was wrong, his career and reputation would be destroyed in the most public way possible. "Doctor," Santos positioned herself at the diagnostic equipment, her experienced eyes ready to interpret every data stream and measurement. The Japanese investors leaned forward with collective anticipation. Amanda's smartphone captured every moment for thousands of online viewers who'd become invested in this unlikely engineering drama. "Start the engine," Dr. Santos commanded. The moment of truth had arrived. 67 previous attempts had failed. Could a maintenance worker with a community college degree succeed where MIT graduates had failed? The engine held its mechanical breath, ready to reveal its secrets to anyone who'd truly learned to listen to its voice. The ignition key turned, and destiny engaged with the sound of perfectly synchronized machinery, finding its natural rhythm for the first time in 6 weeks. The ignition key turned with a metallic click that echoed through the silent boardroom like a gunshot. 200 people held their breath as the engine awakened, its initial rumble filling the space with mechanical thunder that seemed to shake the building's steel foundations. But something was different, immediately, unmistakably different. The harsh, irregular knocking that had plagued the engine for 6 weeks was gone. In its place, a smooth purring emerged, the sound of 8 cylinders firing in perfect synchronization, each combustion chamber contributing to a harmony that made Dr. Santos's eyes widen with recognition. This was what automotive perfection sounded like. Darius stood beside the engine, his hand resting lightly on the vibrating surface. Where once he'd felt the desperate struggle of components fighting against each other, now he sensed the calm confidence of machinery operating within its natural rhythm. The harmonic dampener had worked exactly as his grandfather's wisdom had predicted. The diagnostic screens exploded, with green indicators for the first time in 42 days. Temperature readings stabilized in optimal ranges. Pressure sensors registered perfect compression across all cylinders. The AI system's error messages vanished, replaced by steady streams of operational data that made the engineering team gasp in collective amazement. "Mein Gott," Hiroshi Tanaka whispered, his Japanese composure cracking as he stared at readings that his own Tokyo engineers had dreamed of achieving. The engine was operating at 97. 3% efficiency, 3 percentage points higher than theoretical maximum performance. Dr. Santos moved between diagnostic stations like a conductor reading sheet music, her trained eyes absorbing data that told an incredible story. Oil pressure is steady at optimal. Engine temperature holding at 187 degrees. Harmonic frequency locked at 3,400 RPM with 0 deviation. She looked up at Darius with something approaching reverence. "In 40 years of automotive engineering, I've never seen diagnostic readings this clean. Your grandfather would be proud." The real test came when Amanda, her face pale with growing realization, demanded the full operational challenge. "Fine, it's running. But can it actually power our autonomous vehicle systems under real-world conditions?" Through the boardroom's floor-to-ceiling windows, employees could see Quantum Dynamics' prototype delivery truck parked in the courtyard below. The vehicle had sat motionless for weeks, its advanced navigation systems useless without a functioning power source. Darius nodded toward the truck with quiet confidence. "Let's see what she can do." The engine's power flowed through transmission systems, electrical generators, and computerized networks with the smoothness of water finding its level. Dashboard lights illuminated in sequence as the autonomous vehicle's brain came online for the first time in 6 weeks. GPS systems activated. Radar sensors began scanning. Camera arrays focused with mechanical precision. The crowd pressed against the windows as the truck's headlights brightened, its electric systems drawing power from the perfectly synchronized engine. Slowly, almost ceremonially, the vehicle began to move. It backed out of its parking space with computer-controlled precision, navigated around landscaping obstacles, and executed a flawless parallel parking maneuver that drew spontaneous applause from the watching employees. For 37 minutes, the engine ran without a single irregularity. The dreaded 14-minute shutdown point passed without incident. 20 minutes beyond that, the systems continued operating with German engineering precision, powered by American innovation and guided by Detroit mechanical wisdom. Hiroshi Tanaka's assistant was typing furiously on her tablet, documenting performance metrics that exceeded every specification in their original investment proposal. The other Japanese investors huddled in rapid conversation, their expressions shifting from skepticism to amazement to barely contained excitement about partnership possibilities. Amanda's live stream had attracted over 50,000 viewers, the comments section scrolling too rapidly to read individual messages. Tech industry professionals, automotive engineers, and random internet observers were witnessing something unprecedented. A maintenance worker solving problems that had stumped teams of credentialed experts. "Shut it down, Doctor," Santos finally commanded. "We've seen enough." The engine settled into silence with the satisfied sigh of machinery that had finally found its purpose. The diagnostic screens maintained their green glow for several seconds before fading to standby mode. The autonomous truck returned to its parking space and powered down its systems with electronic contentment. The boardroom remained silent for long moments as the magnitude of what had just occurred settled into collective consciousness. 6 weeks of failure had been resolved in under 2 hours by someone whose official job description included emptying waste baskets. Dr. Santos walked to Darius, extending her hand with formal respect. That was extraordinary engineering intuition. Where others saw software problems, you heard mechanical poetry. Your solution was elegant, cost-effective, and brilliant. Hiroshi Tanaka approached next, his handshake firm with Japanese approval. "Mr. Washington, your diagnostic methodology impressed our entire delegation. This is the kind of innovative thinking that builds industrial partnerships." Amanda stood frozen near the windows, her smartphone still recording a live stream that had become her own professional obituary. The comments were no longer about Darius's inevitable failure. They were celebrating his triumph and questioning her leadership judgment. The moment of truth had passed. What came next would determine whether justice was possible in corporate America and whether talent could triumph over prejudice when the stakes were measured in millions of dollars and hundreds of jobs. But first, the world needed to see what happened when the underestimated finally got their chance to prove what they'd always known about themselves. Dr. Santos's voice cut through the boardroom silence with the authority of someone who'd never been questioned about engineering decisions. Based on this demonstration, I'm making an immediate recommendation to the board. She turned to face Hiroshi Tanaka and the Japanese investors, her words carrying the weight of 4 decades in automotive engineering. Darius Washington has demonstrated exceptional diagnostic capability and innovative problem-solving that exceeds anything I've witnessed from traditional engineering teams. His analysis was mathematically sound, his solution was elegant, and his execution was flawless. Hiroshi Tanaka nodded with Japanese precision. Our delegation concurs completely, Mr. Washington's methodology impressed our entire technical evaluation team. He paused, checking notes on his assistant's tablet. We are prepared to increase our investment commitment by 20%, specifically contingent on Mr. Washington leading our American engine development program. The boardroom erupted in whispers. A 20% increase meant an additional 20 million yen in funds that could transform quantum dynamics from a promising startup into a global automotive power player. Furthermore, Dr. Santos continued, her fountain pen poised over official documentation, I'm bypassing normal promotion protocols to offer immediate advancement to Senior Engine Diagnostics Engineer, effective immediately. The salary adjustment will reflect market value for someone with demonstrated expertise in advanced harmonic engineering. Amanda's livestream comments exploded with celebration. Viewers were sharing the stream across professional networks, and several competing tech companies were already reaching out through social media with recruitment offers. The hashtag #Darius Washington began trending as automotive engineers worldwide discussed the technical brilliance they'd just witnessed. David Thompson stepped forward from the Stanford-trained engineering team, his expression a mixture of humility and professional respect. Our entire team formally apologizes for overlooking your insights. We request collaboration on future projects, and we'd be honored to learn from your diagnostic methodologies. The transformation was complete. In less than 2 hours, Darius had evolved from invisible maintenance worker to respected senior engineer, from overlooked janitor to sought-after technical leader. The Japanese partnership was secured. The engine crisis was resolved, and quantum dynamics' future was brighter than anyone had imagined. But the most satisfying moment was yet to come. Amanda Harrison still stood frozen by the windows, her smartphone capturing her own professional downfall for thousands of viewers who were about to witness what happened when arrogance met accountability in corporate America. The boardroom's atmosphere shifted like a storm front moving across Austin. What had begun as Amanda's public humiliation theater was now her professional reckoning. The Japanese investors exchanged meaningful glances, their expressions revealing calculations that extended far beyond technical assessments. Hiroshi Tanaka's assistant whispered urgent updates about social media reaction. The live stream had reached over 100,000 viewers, with tech industry leaders sharing the video across LinkedIn and Twitter. Comments ranged from celebration of Darius's triumph to harsh criticism of Amanda's leadership style. Quantum dynamics drama was trending alongside Ron's engineering justice. Dr. Santos closed her leather notebook with deliberate finality, her fountain pen clicking with the sound of decisions being made. The board will require a comprehensive review of management practices that led to this situation, specifically how qualified personnel were systematically underutilized while expensive consulting teams failed to achieve basic operational objectives. Amanda's face had drained of color, her confident corporate mask cracking under the weight of very public consequences. She'd orchestrated this challenge, expecting easy victory, never anticipating that her victim would possess the very expertise her company desperately needed. "The Japanese delegation has concerns," Hiroshi Tanaka announced, his precise English carrying undertones that made venture capitalists nervous. "Our partnership requires confidence in leadership decision-making. Today's events suggest systematic evaluation errors that could impact our joint venture success." Board member Patricia Brooks, who'd remained silent during the technical demonstration, now spoke with the authority of someone holding significant stock options. "This incident will require investigation by our governance committee. We need to understand how a senior engineering consultant was relegated to maintenance duties, while his expertise could have prevented 6 weeks of operational failure." The investigation wouldn't take long. Amanda's email history provided damning evidence of discriminatory practices, messages referring to Darius as the cleaning guy, despite his official consultant title. Deliberate scheduling of his janitorial duties during important investor meetings, documented discussions about his inevitable termination as cost-cutting theater. Human Resources Director Jennifer Walsh, who'd participated in the cruel email threads with laughing emojis, found herself summoned to emergency meetings about hostile workplace environment policies. The viral video had become legal evidence, and corporate lawyers were already discussing settlement strategies. 2 weeks later, the consequences crystallized with surgical precision. Amanda was demoted from Chief Executive Officer to Strategic Advisor, her salary reduced by 40%, while her decision-making authority evaporated. She retained employment. The board wasn't interested in wrongful termination lawsuits, but her corporate power had been neutered completely. The diversity and inclusion training requirement felt particularly poetic. Amanda, who'd spent 3 years dismissing Darius's potential, now sat through workshops about unconscious bias and inclusive leadership. Her trainer was Dr. Santos, who approached education with the same methodical precision she applied to engineering problems. Meanwhile, Darius's transformation continued beyond individual success. His promotion to senior engineering diagnostics came with a 150% salary increase, stock options, and leadership of a task force on inclusive innovation practices. The company implemented new policies requiring formal review of all employee suggestions, regardless of source or current position. Quantum Dynamics' stock price rose 15% following the positive publicity. The viral video had become an unexpected marketing asset, demonstrating the company's commitment to recognizing talent wherever it emerged. Recruitment applications increased by 40%, with many candidates specifically mentioning the inspiring story of meritocracy triumph. The most satisfying moment came 3 months later, when Amanda approached Darius privately in the employee cafeteria. Her designer suit had been replaced with more modest professional attire, her arrogant demeanor softened by hard lessons about humility and respect. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly, her words carrying genuine remorse. "And I'd like to ask for guidance about building more inclusive leadership practices." Darius looked at her with the same grace his grandfather had shown to customers who'd initially doubted his mechanical expertise. "Everyone deserves a chance to grow, Amanda. The question is whether you're ready to listen with the same attention you'd give to a machine that needs repair." Corporate justice had been served, proportional, educational, and ultimately redemptive. 6 months later, Darius Washington stood in Quantum Dynamics' expanded engineering facility, watching Japanese technicians install equipment for the Asian autonomous vehicle production line. His designs now powered delivery trucks across Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto, their engines purring with the harmonic perfection he'd discovered in a moment of corporate desperation. The framed community college diploma still hung in his apartment, but now it shared wall space with patents, industry awards, and a photograph of him shaking hands with Hiroshi Tanaka at the Tokyo Auto Show. His grandfather's garage wisdom had evolved into million-dollar engineering decisions that bridged continents. The Japanese partnership exceeded all projections. Quantum Dynamics engines became the gold standard for autonomous vehicle efficiency, with orders pouring in from delivery companies across 3 continents. Darius's harmonic dampener technology was licensed to major automotive manufacturers, generating royalties that secured his mother's medical care for life. Dr. Santos became more than a mentor. She became a collaborator. Their joint research on harmonic frequency optimization revolutionized engine design principles. The paper they co-authored, Acoustic Engineering in Multicultural Manufacturing Environments, became required reading in engineering schools worldwide. The engineering team that had once dismissed him now sought his guidance on every major project. David Thompson, the Stanford graduate who'd initially scoffed at his suggestions, became his closest collaborator. Their partnership proved that competence transcended credentials when ego stepped aside for genuine respect. But perhaps the most profound change occurred in company culture. The Darius Protocol became standard practice. Any employee, regardless of position, could request formal review of technical suggestions. The custodial staff, inspired by his example, began contributing insights about facility efficiency that saved thousands in operational costs. Amanda's transformation, while gradual, became genuine. The diversity training evolved from punishment into passion project. She established mentorship programs connecting underutilized employees with senior management, ensuring that talent would never again be wasted due to superficial judgments. The live stream that was meant to humiliate became a teaching tool. Business schools used the footage to illustrate the costs of unconscious bias and the value of inclusive leadership. Amanda, in a moment of surprising courage, agreed to appear at conferences discussing her mistakes and the lessons learned. The Japanese investors became more than financial partners. They became cultural bridges. Hiroshi Tanaka established an exchange program bringing young Japanese engineers to Austin while sending American technicians to Tokyo. The cross-pollination of ideas created innovations that neither culture could have achieved alone. Darius's mother's health improved dramatically once financial stress was eliminated. The experimental cancer treatments, now easily affordable, proved remarkably effective. She returned to teaching, her classroom filled with stories about her son who'd proven that brilliance couldn't be contained by circumstances. William Washington's garage philosophy had found new expression in corporate boardrooms and international partnerships. The old man's belief that engines don't lie had become a metaphor for authentic merit, transcending social prejudice. His grandson had carried those lessons from Detroit's industrial decline to Austin's technological renaissance. The community college professors who'd recognized Darius's potential were invited to quantum dynamics for a ceremony honoring educational excellence. Dr. Martinez, who'd encouraged him to keep his light burning, delivered the keynote address about nurturing talent in unexpected places. 6 months after the challenge, the ripple effects continued expanding like waves from a stone dropped in still water. The story had transcended corporate drama to become a symbol of American meritocracy's potential when prejudice was stripped away. Documentary filmmakers approached Darius about telling his story, but he insisted on including Amanda's redemption arc, believing that transformation mattered more than condemnation. The engineering solution itself sparked an industry revolution. The harmonic dampener principle was applied to electric vehicle motors, wind turbine generators, and even spacecraft propulsion systems. NASA contacted Quantum Dynamics about adapting the technology for Mars rover engines, where efficiency and reliability were literally matters of life and death. Universities rewrote their engineering curricula to include acoustic harmony principles that had been overlooked in traditional mechanical education. The Darius Washington Center for Inclusive Engineering was established at his community college, providing scholarships for underrepresented students pursuing technical degrees. Corporate America took notice. The quantum dynamics model became a case study in Harvard Business School courses about recognizing hidden talent. Companies began implementing reverse mentoring programs where employees from all levels could contribute insights to executive decision-making. The Japanese partnership exceeded every projection. Quantum dynamics engines powered autonomous delivery fleets across Asia, their efficiency ratings becoming the industry benchmark. The cultural exchange program produced innovations that neither American nor Japanese engineers could have conceived independently. Darius's personal laboratory became a pilgrimage site for young engineers seeking to understand his diagnostic methodologies. He insisted that the space remain open to all employees, regardless of title or tenure. The lab's motto, painted in William Washington's handwriting, read, "Listen to what the machine is trying to tell you." Amanda's journey from antagonist to advocate proved that redemption was possible when pride surrendered to humility. Her speaking engagements at leadership conferences drew standing ovations as she shared painful lessons about the costs of unconscious bias. Her book, The Blind Spot: How Prejudice Nearly Destroyed Everything I Built, became a bestseller among executives seeking authentic change. The diversity initiatives Amanda championed weren't performative gestures, but fundamental transformations. Quantum Dynamics became the most diverse tech company in Austin, with talent scouts specifically seeking brilliance in overlooked places. The company's innovation rate tripled, as previously silenced voices contributed solutions to long-standing problems. Dr. Santos's mentorship extended beyond Darius to encompass a new generation of engineers who learned that technical excellence required both scientific knowledge and social consciousness. Her workshops on engineering without ego became mandatory for all senior staff, creating a culture where the best idea won, regardless of its source. The live stream's impact reached international audiences. Engineering schools in developing countries used the footage to encourage students who felt their circumstances limited their potential. The video was translated into dozens of languages, inspiring young people to pursue technical careers despite economic or social obstacles. Hiroshi Tanaka's investment philosophy shifted from pure technical evaluation to include assessment of company culture and inclusive practices. His firm became a leader in socially conscious venture capital, proving that ethical investment strategies could generate superior returns while advancing social justice. The maintenance staff at Quantum Dynamics experienced their own transformation. Inspired by Darius's example, they began documenting observations about facility operations that led to significant efficiency improvements. The company implemented a formal system for collecting and evaluating suggestions from all employees, creating an innovation pipeline that traditional hierarchies had blocked. David Thompson's collaboration with Darius produced breakthrough research on cross-cultural engineering methodologies. Their joint papers became foundational texts for globally distributed development teams, showing how diverse perspectives could solve problems that homogeneous groups missed entirely. The community college where Darius had studied became a recruitment target for major corporations seeking practical talent over prestigious credentials. Enrollment in technical programs increased 300%, as students recognized that competence mattered more than pedigree in determining career success. William Washington's memory was honored with a scholarship fund, supporting students who demonstrated both technical aptitude and financial need. The fund's recipients were required to complete internships at automotive companies, ensuring that practical wisdom would continue passing between generations. The story's psychological impact proved as significant as its technical achievements. Corporate counselors reported increased requests for bias training as employees recognized their own potential blind spots. The fear of missing hidden talent motivated companies to examine their hiring and promotion practices with unprecedented scrutiny. Amanda's leadership transformation influenced other executives facing similar reckonings. A support group for leaders learning to overcome unconscious bias formed around her experiences, creating a network dedicated to authentic change rather than superficial compliance with diversity requirements. The engineering conference circuit embraced Darius as a keynote speaker, but his presentations focused on technical innovation rather than personal narrative. He believed his grandfather's wisdom spoke through successful problem-solving, better than through motivational storytelling. Quantum Dynamics' success attracted acquisition offers from major automotive manufacturers, but the board unanimously rejected deals that would have compromised the company's commitment to inclusive innovation. They understood that their competitive advantage lay not just in technical capabilities, but in their ability to recognize and nurture talent wherever it appeared. 2 years after the challenge, Darius found himself addressing the United Nations Technology Council about inclusive innovation strategies. The young man who'd once emptied trash cans in corporate boardrooms now spoke to world leaders, about recognizing human potential regardless of socioeconomic circumstances. His presentation focused on technical solutions rather than social commentary, but the implications were clear. Breakthrough innovations emerged when brilliant minds were freed from artificial constraints. The harmonic dampener principle had evolved into a comprehensive theory of system optimization that applied to everything from manufacturing processes to organizational management. The automotive industry had embraced quantum dynamics technology as the new standard for autonomous vehicle efficiency. Major manufacturers licensed the harmonic optimization system, generating royalties that funded research into even more advanced propulsion technologies. Darius's team was developing quantum harmonic resonance systems that promised to revolutionize space exploration. Amanda's transformation had become equally remarkable. Her consulting firm specialized in helping corporations identify and eliminate systemic bias in technical evaluation processes. Her methodology, based on painful personal experience, helped companies avoid the costly mistakes that nearly destroyed quantum dynamics. She'd become an unlikely champion for workplace equity, her credibility enhanced by her history of getting it wrong before learning to get it right. The Japanese partnership had expanded beyond simple technology transfer to create a new model for international collaboration. The Austin-Tokyo Engineering Exchange program produced innovations that neither culture could have achieved independently. Young engineers who completed the program returned home with perspectives that enriched both American pragmatism and Japanese precision. Dr. Santos had established the Institute for Acoustic Engineering, dedicated to researching the intersection of mechanical systems and harmonic optimization. The institute attracted researchers from around the world, creating a collaborative environment where breakthrough discoveries emerged from diverse perspectives, combining in unexpected ways. The Darius Washington story had inspired legislation requiring government contractors to implement inclusive innovation protocols. The requirement that all employee suggestions receive formal evaluation, regardless of source, became standard practice across federal agencies, leading to efficiency improvements that saved taxpayers millions while advancing social equity. Corporate America's response exceeded simple compliance with new regulations. Forward-thinking companies recognized that inclusive practices generated competitive advantages by accessing previously overlooked talent pools. The hidden genius phenomenon became a sought-after asset rather than an accidental discovery. Universities restructured their engineering programs to include mandatory courses on cross-cultural collaboration and bias recognition. The next generation of engineers would graduate with both technical competence and social consciousness, prepared to lead innovation teams that reflected humanity's full spectrum of talent. The documentary film about Darius's story won international recognition, but its most powerful impact occurred in communities where young people saw their own potential reflected in his journey. Engineering program enrollments surged among underrepresented populations, creating a talent pipeline that would drive innovation for decades. William Washington's garage wisdom had evolved into a philosophy taught in business schools worldwide. The principle that competence recognizes competence became a foundational concept for leaders learning to evaluate talent without prejudicial filters. His grandson had transformed folk wisdom into global management theory. The technology itself continued advancing. Quantum dynamics engines now powered not just delivery trucks, but emergency response vehicles, agricultural equipment, and experimental aircraft. The harmonic optimization principle was being adapted for medical devices, renewable energy systems, and communication satellites. Hiroshi Tanaka's investment firm had become a model for ethical venture capital, proving that social consciousness and financial returns could align when leaders committed to authentic change. His approach attracted investors who understood that sustainable profits required sustainable social practices. The maintenance workers at Quantum Dynamics had formed their own innovation team, contributing insights that led to breakthrough improvements in facility efficiency and worker safety. Their success inspired similar programs at companies worldwide, creating formal channels for practical wisdom to inform strategic decisions. David Thompson's career had flourished through his collaboration with Darius. But more importantly, his perspective had been fundamentally altered. He became an advocate for recognizing brilliance regardless of its packaging, mentoring young engineers from diverse backgrounds and ensuring their voices were heard in technical discussions. The community college system experienced unprecedented growth as corporations recognized the value of practical education combined with real-world experience. Students who might previously have been overlooked found themselves recruited by major companies, seeking talent that understood both theoretical principles and practical applications. Amanda's book had become required reading in leadership development programs, not as an inspirational text, but as a cautionary tale about the costs of unconscious bias. Her honest examination of her mistakes provided a roadmap for other leaders seeking to overcome their own prejudicial blind spots. The live stream that was meant to humiliate had become one of the most watched corporate videos in internet history. Business schools used it to illustrate multiple principles: the importance of inclusive leadership, the value of diverse perspectives, the power of practical problem-solving, and the possibility of redemption when mistakes were honestly acknowledged and actively corrected. The ripple effects continued expanding, touching industries and communities far removed from automotive engineering. The story had transcended its origins to become a symbol of American potential, realized when artificial barriers were removed and authentic merit was allowed to flourish. 5 years later, Darius Washington stood in the William Washington Memorial Garage, a state-of-the-art facility where disadvantaged youth learned automotive skills while earning college credits. The space combined his grandfather's practical wisdom with modern technology, creating pathways for young people to discover their potential regardless of their starting circumstances. The facility bore little resemblance to the original Detroit garage, but its spirit remained unchanged. Young hands learned to listen to engine heartbeats while understanding that competence transcended social prejudice. The scholarship program Darius had established ensured that financial obstacles wouldn't prevent talented students from pursuing their dreams. Quantum Dynamics had evolved from a struggling startup to a global leader in autonomous vehicle technology. The company's success wasn't measured only in profit margins, but in the careers launched, the barriers broken, and the innovations achieved through inclusive practices that had once seemed revolutionary, but now felt essential. Amanda's journey from antagonist to advocate had reached its own culmination. Her consulting firm had helped transform dozens of corporations, creating workplace cultures where talent was recognized regardless of its packaging. She'd proven that authentic change was possible when leaders possessed the courage to confront their own limitations. The Japanese partnership had grown into a comprehensive alliance encompassing not just business collaboration, but cultural exchange and educational cooperation. The innovations emerging from Austin-Tokyo research teams were advancing multiple industries while demonstrating that diversity of perspective was essential for breakthrough discoveries. Dr. Santos had retired from active engineering, but continued mentoring young professionals through the institute she'd established. Her influence extended far beyond technical achievements to encompass a generation of engineers who understood that excellence required both scientific competence and social consciousness. The harmonic dampener principle had found applications in industries Darius had never imagined. NASA's Mars exploration vehicles used adapted versions of his technology. Medical device manufacturers incorporated harmonic optimization into life-saving equipment. Renewable energy systems achieved unprecedented efficiency through acoustic engineering principles first discovered in a corporate boardroom. The story's impact on corporate culture had become permanent rather than temporary. The quantum dynamic standard for inclusive innovation was now required practice for government contractors and voluntary best practice for progressive corporations. Hidden talent was being discovered and nurtured in companies worldwide. Young engineers graduating from universities around the world carried William Washington's wisdom into their careers. The principle that machines responded to competence regardless of credentials had evolved into organizational philosophy that recognized human potential regardless of superficial characteristics. The automotive industry had embraced quantum dynamics approach as fundamental rather than innovative, Efficiency ratings that had once seemed impossible were now standard expectations. The technology that Darius had developed in 2 hours of concentrated effort was powering transportation systems across 6 continents. Amanda's speaking engagements had evolved from confession to consultation. Corporate leaders sought her guidance not because she'd once failed spectacularly, but because she'd learned to succeed authentically. Her transformation proved that redemption was possible when accompanied by genuine commitment to change. The community college system had experienced a renaissance as corporations recognized the value of practical education. Students who combined theoretical knowledge with hands-on experience were commanding premium salaries and advancing rapidly in technical careers. Hiroshi Tanaka's investment philosophy had influenced an entire generation of venture capitalists who understood that social consciousness and financial returns were complementary rather than competing objectives. Ethical investment practices were generating superior returns while advancing social equity. The maintenance workers whose voices had been amplified by Darius's example were now integral members of innovation teams at companies worldwide. Practical wisdom was being formally incorporated into strategic planning processes, creating solutions that purely theoretical approaches had missed. The documentary about Darius's story had inspired countless young people to pursue technical careers, despite economic or social obstacles. Engineering schools reported unprecedented diversity in their student populations as barriers to entry were systematically removed. But perhaps the most significant legacy was intangible, the cultural shift that had occurred when artificial barriers to human potential were recognized and eliminated. The story had become a symbol of American meritocracy's promise, fulfilled rather than betrayed. Sometimes the most powerful expertise comes wrapped in the most unexpected packages. The question isn't who has the degrees, it's who has the dedication to truly understand the problem. If this story inspired you to look beyond assumptions and recognize hidden talent, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Have you ever witnessed someone's potential being completely overlooked? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might become our next viral story of justice and recognition. There's a detail only sharp-eyed viewers will notice at minute 43:20 that reveals Amanda's true character transformation. Watch again and tell us what you spotted. Thank you to everyone who typed justice and shared your locations. This incredible story shows how hidden talent exists everywhere, waiting for someone brave enough to recognize it.